I'd just like to introduce Phil Shelley. He's the Managing Director of Basketball Education, developer and head coach of Shooting Hoops, specialist shooting analysis and coaching consultants, and program manager, senior educator for Chisholm Basketball Academy. So please make Phil welcome.
Thanks, Jodie, and thank you for inviting me along. It's an honour to come and present to you today. It's actually, I was a guest presenter for the 40th anniversary for Country Victorian Basketball, which also means a lot to me being an alumni. I played under 18 Country Vic myself, so it's always a pleasure to come back and have any contribution I can. We've got very limited time today. I wish we had 3 weeks to go over this stuff. I love this stuff, but we'll do the best we can in the 45 minutes. So I'm going to put my little stopwatch on here so I'm keeping on track. Now, one of the things that we're up against with basketball shooting coaching is so many myths and misconceptions and conflicting information out there about how it should be taught, how it should be executed, and also the fact that it's quite intimidating to teach something to somebody if you're not very good at it yourself. Hands up if you agree with that. Would you agree that it's yeah? Okay, so it takes a little bit of guts to get out there and show somebody something that you may not be able to execute that well yourself, but you can make up for that by knowledge, okay? If you know your stuff, you know how it looks, you know how to teach it, you know key teaching points and teaching cues, an understanding of how people learn, you can still make a really positive contribution. You can also use the best player in your team as the model for certain things, okay? But we'll talk about that later. Now, we're not going to be able to cover everything to do with shooting today, but I'll go through a few things. I've developed a curriculum and a method for analysing and teaching shooting, and I've used an acronym to, again, help make it more user-friendly to people and less intimidating. So if anyone's done a first aid course where you've got Dr. ABC, helps you remember dangers, response, airways, breathing, circulation, just stays in there a little bit, and you've got a systematic approach to doing something. Well, that's exactly what I've done here, except it's an actual word, which is nice. Sometimes you see acronyms that have got a word in there that shouldn't be in there, but this makes sense. So I'm just going to really quickly go over that and show you which element of this we're discussing today. So preparation is the first part of it, okay? And when you're teaching shooting, preparation is critical, okay? That involves what your target is. So many players don't have a specific target. You can improve a player's shooting immensely just by saying, what are you looking at? And so many kids will say, the square. You don't want them to hit the square, okay? So just narrowing the focus on that sort of stuff. So I teach underside of the back of the ring, but we'll go through all this later. So preparation also encompasses your stance, your shooting pocket, your balance, your posture, and your target, and your hand positioning on the ball. So there's quite a bit in that, okay, and it's critical. The next part is the execution, and that's the motion of the shot, that's the flow, the rhythm, the timing. In technical terms, called summation of forces. It's how well you capture all of the power from your joints in a nice fluid motion and transfer that into the shot. So that's the area that we're going to actually cover in the time we've got today, as best we can, okay? You could spend two days just on preparation and all this sort of stuff. Next part is release. Now, depending on, no matter what the sport is, whether it's a golf swing or a tennis shot or a drop punt in football, biomechanists, skill acquisition people, PE teachers, coaches, they all break motor skills down into 3 components. There's preparatory movements, there's the action, and then there's follow through. So whether it's a golf swing where you've got your belt buckle pointing to the target, or a drop punt where you've got your toe pointing to the target, in our case, hand pointing to the target, they've all got follow-through, execution and preparatory movements. So nothing's different in my methodology. However, in our sport, there's 2 elements to a follow-through. You might have a beautiful release where you lock it out elbow above eyebrow, but you might have a terrible follow-through with bunched up hand in the cookie jar, okay? You might have a beautiful follow-through, but a gooseneck release. So I've broken that into 2 parts. So there's release and follow-through. So far, that spells the word P-E-R-F, or perf, okay? Now, what that does, that makes up what we call a subroutine of shooting. And that's how all skill acquisition people deal with teaching skills. The next thing is, how do we coach it? And that's what we're going to help you with today, okay? So we observe and evaluate it, okay? We examine and evaluate. There's 2 E words. So once you know the subroutine, you know what you're looking for, where do you stand to look for certain things? Do you stand in front? Do you stand on the side? Do you stand behind? what are you actually looking for? And that's coaching. Too many people think coaching is setting up drills and running drills. The beginner coaches do their session plans, they go do that drill, and then while that drill's going on, they're setting up the cones for the other drill, thinking that that's all they've got to do. The drills are there so you can coach, so you can observe, analyse, provide feedback, okay? So if anything at all today you learn from me, go into your drills with that mentality. All right, so you evaluate it. Next thing, you go to school on every shot. Try to teach your players, and we'll do this with the girls down here, is teach them to go to school on every shot. You can learn something from every shot. And a good example of that is dart players, professional dart players. If anyone's ever watched it, when they have to get a double, that's the ring around the outside to win the game, they've got 3 darts to do it quite often. So they'll deliberately throw one a little wider. And then based on the information from that first one, they've got a far greater chance of making the second one, and then they win the game with the second one. And that's going to school on every shot. Yet how many of our basketball players have that mentality? We want them to learn from the previous shot, make a necessary adjustment, if it's long, if it's short, if it's left, if it's right, okay? And they, in time with that mentality, they become their own shot doctor, all right? Einstein said, you know something well if you can explain it to a 6-year-old. Okay, so I do a lot of peer coaching in my sessions. I have players teach each other, and they leave my sessions have a far better understanding because they've been forced to be the coach. I do a lot of stuff in front of the mirror, have the players every morning, every night, clean their teeth, put the toothbrush down, turn in the front of the mirror, and do 10 shots with good form. And they're the coach. If that person in the mirror has their elbow wrong, or has the ball on the wrong side of the body, or is starting too high, they look in the mirror and go, that's not acceptable. I know it's different. So there's 20 reps a day where they're the coach, okay? And it reinforces their learning and speeds things up. So next thing, you coach it. Another C word. Too many beginner coaches only provide feedback that's critical. When they see something going wrong, they'll step in and fix it. Okay, they forget, and it's a common thing. I've been teaching coaching for 20 years. It's a common thing that they don't provide positive feedback when they see something being done well. So get into that habit as well. So once you know what you're looking for, you see somebody who's got a good elbow, you see somebody who's got good rhythm, tell them, great rhythm on that last shot. However, look at your feet, let's fix your feet, whatever it might be. Another C word, correct it. If it's a flaw, if it's not right, correct it, okay? So next thing, try again. So that's the whole process of how we learn anything. That's the feedback loop. So we evaluate it, we correct it, or coach it, and then we try again. Now, how we coach it is based on this word, feedback. So we provide feedback, should be timely, it should be precise, should be related to what they're doing, okay? Can be critical, but it can also be positive. The most important thing in my whole acronym is that, the O, is the order of teaching. If you love what I'm teaching you today and you go home with all of these teaching points and then you work with a young player this week and you tell them 7 things they're doing wrong, you'll cause paralysis by analysis. The real skill is knowing how to prioritise the things that you know and what's best not to tell them just now and what's best to tell them right now. And you just work on 1, maybe 2 key teaching points so that they practice with a purpose, okay? For the next 20 minutes, I don't care whether the shot goes in, I just want your guide hand from here to here. And that's all we're worrying about today, okay? Rather than bog them down with 7 things. So that's an approach to that. So order of teaching is absolutely critical. Next thing, reinforce those 1 or 2 key teaching points. Work on those things with a purpose. Go out and practice in the driveway with a specific purpose and reinforce them. And then the last one, I love this one because my acronym works really great because you've got to master those 1 or 2 things, make them muscle memory and move on. There's lots of M words in that one. Make them muscle memory and move on, okay? So that's the acronym and it spells perfect form. So there's a lot of curriculum underneath that. That's just the framework for presenting stuff we're doing. But today all we're worrying about is the execution part of this, okay? But you can see how that feedback, that's how we learn anything, okay? You evaluate it, you coach it, you try again. You evaluate it, you coach it, you try again. That's the process. So that only took 5 years to come up with. But I've done a lot of work, so that seems very simple for you guys, okay? Now, what I want to work on today is the execution of the shot. And for those of you who do a little bit of study on your own, and a lot don't because you're so bogged down with all the other elements of your program. I know, you know, you've got the management of the teams, you've got X's and O's, you've got transition, you've got injuries to deal with, you've got everything. Sometimes travel arrangements. It's so hard to say, I'm going to be a great shooting coach and spend a lot of time on this. All right, well, I realised years ago that I wasn't the best X's and O's guy in the world, and I realised that every team needs players who can actually put the ball in the hole, whether they run shuffle or motion or flex or whatever. So I've just decided that's my little niche, and I want to be as good as I can be at that. And I tell people I'm all right now, but I'm going to be really good at it when I'm 80, because I'm learning every day. And I would like nothing better than one of you guys today to question something I've taught you and say, listen, I don't think that's right and here's why. And if you can do that, I'll change, because everything I'm teaching you has been backed up by scientific research and thousands of my own repetitions and thousands of kids that I've coached that I've learnt from. So if it makes me better by someone pointing something out, I'll adopt that. And that's what coaching is. It's adopting and adapting, okay? Nice way to say stealing, really, but stealing ideas and using them, okay? So now, one of the things we'll discuss today is one motion shooting form versus two motion shooting form. Hands up if you haven't heard that terminology before in basketball circles. Okay, good. All right, no worries. So most of you have heard a little bit about that. Now, examples of one and two motion shooting, all right, and I'll show you some video examples in a minute, but where it's derived a lot from is a lot of the athleticism in the NBA. You've got guys who can, you know, jump out of the gym. They are predominantly two motion shooters where they have to jump up in the air, hang in the air, bring the ball up high above their head, and then make that shot over long athletic defenders. And there are female athletes who are very good at two motion shooting as well. All right, but males have greater muscle mass and broader shoulders, greater leverage, mechanical advantage in the upper body. So they've been able to do the more athletic two-motion shooting. For that reason, there's been, you know, people over the years have said, oh, one-motion shooting is shooting like a girl, okay? Now, I understand how sensitive that statement is, given the latest TV ads and stuff, you know, where the guy says, oh, you throw like a girl, you know? So I don't mean that disrespectful at all, but I'm actually suggesting today that we consider that, because the reasons that people have been given over the years is you can't get your shot away in international competition if you have a one-motion shot, okay? You've got to get some hang time, you've got to get up high, you've got to get the ball up high, and Steph Curry's proven that to be completely wrong. He's been recorded as having the fastest release in the NBA, and he has a flat shot. It comes from in front of the forehead, still gets it away, and he has endless shooting range. Anywhere over half court, he can make that shot. So we have to, at some point in time, question some of these myths that are going around and say, well, hang on, let's just work through this. All right, so that's what we're going to work on down on court a little bit, is try and help players understand how they can get a quicker release, capture the upward motion better, and explore this idea of a two-motion shot. I'm not presenting it as the be-all and end-all. You notice when my perfect form acronym had 4U tacked on the end of it. There's not one perfect shooting motion for everybody, okay? People have different fast-twitch muscle fibres. They have different dominant eye. I'm a left-eye dominant shooter, but I'm a right-hand dominant, okay? Some people have different flexibility, different balance, different posture. Okay, so we deal with that, but what I'm presenting today is what I believe to be the simplest, most comfortable, most biomechanically efficient and repeatable shooting form as a cookie cutter that we can try to get people as close to that within their body, within their personal constrictions. And the other benefit of what I'm about to show you is the visual learning element. To try and describe in words how a shot should look, seeing is believing. So the pros and cons, okay, I've listed that briefly. The other reason why I'm an advocate of one motion shooting is because you can extend your range almost limitlessly with this principle. If you're taught to start the ball above your head from a young age, and then you want to extend your range to be a good three-point shooter or beyond, It's very difficult because you're not using all the levers properly. Okay, a one-motion shooter, if the game situation dictates that they have to hang in the air and bring the ball behind their head a little bit and make that shot, they can do that. But someone who's only knows two-motion shooting struggles to extend their range beyond three-point line very accurately. And that's my logic behind it. The other reason is I teach a relatively low shooting pocket compared to some coaches. Reason being that it's close to a triple threat stance. It's a slightly higher than triple threat stance, but it's very quick if you want to put it to the floor. So if you're starting here and you want to put it to the floor, it's more difficult. So there's other reasons for that. I teach a relatively low shooting pocket, horizontal forearm shooting pocket for free throw shooting, because we need to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of repetitions at the free throw line. It wins games, it wins championships. So why not have a free throw shooting action that closely mimics the action that is going to extend your range? So for every free throw you practice, it's a key component of your long range shooting. They're not two different shots. All right, now let me clarify that as well. The distance from the basket determines how high a shooting pocket you need. If you're inside the key, you shoot it from what's termed as set point. So you're not going to bring it down to a low shooting pocket if you're in amongst tall timbers. And you don't need the power, you're close to the basket, so you start it high. Okay, as you move further back from the basket, you need more levers involved, so you have a lower shooting pocket. As you move further back, lower shooting pocket. When you're right back outside three, lower shooting pocket again, perhaps with a body and ball dip to get that power. That's all part of a one motion shot, but it's all on the same shot plane. Okay, so I'll leave it at that in the time we've got, but we'll keep going. So the low release point, the myths are you wouldn't get it away. I've addressed that. We'll show you that that's not right. And again, if experts say that Steph Curry shoots like a girl, and all the sports scientists have proven that the now same people are saying he could be one of the greatest shooters of all time, why wouldn't everybody, male or female, seriously consider shooting like a girl? Okay, so I teach every player to shoot like a girl, I guess. I teach one motion shooting. All right. Now, this is my little guy I've developed called Peter Perfect. And what I like to say is, I use a saying, is perfection is not when there's nothing else to add. Perfection is when there's nothing else to take away. All right, it's a bit like refining a diamond. Your diamonds come from coal mines, and when you've got them, they've got gross flaws. Okay, you've got to get the dust and the coal and the grit and reduce all those very gross flaws and gross errors from that thing, and it starts to look a little bit like a diamond. And then you take a bit more away, unnecessary things away, and polish it up and it becomes a diamond. Same with shooting. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm not adding a lot of complicated stuff. In most cases when I work with a player, I'm actually getting rid of unnecessary movement. Why are you starting it over here? Why are you dipping it? Why are you moving your elbow out here? Why are you bringing your hand here? And I'm taking stuff away until we get to what is very simple and very repeatable and very comfortable. And the key, you'll hear me say the word comfortable a lot. It needs to be comfortable. And then this is a guideline for people within their personal limitations can get as close to as we can. Okay? So that's the sort of stuff we're going to talk about down on court. We're going to work on ways of, and so many of my clients, I have to undo what they're currently doing. And I say to people, what I teach is not that hard to learn, and I'm quite good at teaching it. The hardest bit is often unlearning what you currently do. Okay, and I'll show you that. Everyone just stand up for me for a minute. All right, I want you to do this as soon as I say it. I want you to do it. Okay, don't think. Just fold your arms. Go. Good. Okay. All right. Undo them now. All right. Now do that. Quick. Go. Good. All right. Now fold your arms. Other arm on top. Go. Who's still thinking about it? All right. Let them go. Do that. Other thumb on top. Who's still thinking? All right. Okay. Just sit down for a sec. So you have a certain way of doing things. Most of the kids that you coach, and the ones who are really keen on their basketball, are shooting hundreds and hundreds of shots every night in the driveway, are ingraining habits. And you've got to, sometimes they're bad habits, so you've got to try and change that. Anytime they shoot without thinking, muscle memory takes over, and it's a very stubborn bugger to deal with. all right? It takes over. They don't even know they're doing it. Okay, I have girls and boys that I coach where I pass them a basketball and say, just hold it there. And while I'm talking to them about something, the ball is creeping up like it's on a string. The ball's creeping up around here without them even knowing it's happening. Okay, it's just habit. They don't even know that their body has just done that. So there's some of the things we're going to deal with downstairs.